widely after the event. So welcome to everybody to our webinar for finance and accounting instructors. The theme today is student engagement, motivation and active learning. So you're in a Zoom webinar today. You're going to be connected by audio and able to hear what we're saying and see the panel. You won't be able to actually speak or turn on your own video, I'm afraid today. This is a broadcast webinar. You might want to close down anything on your computer that's using a lot of connectivity, just so that you get the best experience. The session, as I mentioned, is being recorded. We're going to share the recording afterwards with everybody that's registered for the session. Please, if you would like to use the Q&A box, if you'd like to ask any questions, and we will put those to our panel. And you can also use the chat box if you want to make any general comments. Okay, just to let you know the order of what's going to be happening today. So briefly, I'll be asking our speakers to introduce themselves. We'll then be having a discussion on the theme of thriving in today's changing education landscape, which I'm sure is something that's close to everybody's heart right now. We have Anne-Marie Ward and hopefully David Hillier joining us for that discussion. My colleague Rosie is going to be putting the questions. You can also, as I say, during that discussion, please put your own questions in the Q&A box and we'll allow a bit of time for that afterwards. Then my colleague Lindsay and Maggie, they're going to be showcasing some of our McGraw Hill solutions that might assist you in engaging your students a little more deeply, and there'll be time for questions for them if you'd like to ask anything after that. Can I please pass over to Anne-Marie Ward to introduce herself?
Yeah, okay. So as mentioned by Bryony, I'm a professor of accounting at Ulster University. I've been teaching financial accounting and finance for over 20 years at all levels, undergraduate in every year, you know, postgraduate, masters, PhD level, and also professionally. I taught for Chartered Accountants Ireland for 15 years, so I have finger on the pulse and strong relationships with the Institute. I've authored 4 textbooks in the areas of finance, personal finance and financial accounting. And when I write textbooks, I work closely with the editor. I keep an eye on research and what's going on in the academic world. And also I work closely with the institutes to make sure that the textbooks reflect what's current and valid for students at the time that the textbook is being published.
Wonderful, thank you. And David, thank you for joining us. May I invite you to introduce yourself briefly also?
Thanks, Brian. So I'm Associate Principal at the University of Strathclyde and also Executive Dean of Strathclyde Business School. So I'm in charge of all the operations at the business school. Sorry, there's someone come to the door and my dog's barking, so I apologise for that. So in terms of the teaching that I do, I teach predominantly MBA classes and corporate MBA classes. So we've got a lot of corporate clients from all over the world, such as Iberdrola or Babcock or Weir Group. So I engage at that level. I also engage in our MBA program. We have 6 international centres, so I'm not just, you know, teaching in Glasgow. I'm also teaching in Switzerland, in Greece, in Oman, in Bahrain, in Dubai, Malaysia, Singapore. So there's a whole range of different cultures that I'm engaging with, and also different learning styles and different abilities in terms of the types of people who come onto the programs, whether they're, you know, maybe a little less experienced going forward, to people who have a lot of experience but potentially less quantitative skills. So it's quite a range of teaching. I am the author of 3 textbooks in the McGraw Hill stable. It's Fundamentals of Corporate Finance and Financial Markets and Corporate Strategy. And so, and I've been working on those books since 2008, and we're now in the 4th edition of those books. So I've had quite a lot of experience over time as well, in terms of how the students and people that I teach, their requirements have changed and their characteristics have also changed.
Wonderful, thank you so much. I'm going to hand over now to my colleague Rosie to be having a discussion with our panelists. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bryony. I'll just quickly introduce myself. My name is Rosie Churchill. I'm the Portfolio Manager for Accounting at at McGraw Hill. I've also previously worked with David on his titles as well in my previous role as content developer. So it's great to have them both here today. And thanks everyone for joining us. So yeah, really this panel discussion, we just want to open conversation between David and Anne-Marie, and feel free to be putting questions in the chat box as we go along as well. David, it'd be great if you could start us off with talking through your current teaching and what approach you or your university is taking in terms of whether you're teaching face-to-face or hybrid or fully online, just to kind of set the scene of what you're doing.
Thanks, Rosie. So clearly we're just coming out a period of everyone being online, and we had to adapt fully to that new environment. This semester, we've moved to much more of a hybrid approach. We've taken the best of what we've learned in the first year and tried to implement that going forward. The Scottish Government has a different criteria from Westminster Government and also the other nations as well. So we have to still have social distancing, and the sector itself has voluntarily gone in over what we call level 0. So as it stands just now, we are doing teaching on campus, and so we've got the students on campus, but we've capped at the maximum number of students that we can take to be about 50 or 60 in any one class or any one lecture theatre. That has meant that we've had to change how we do things, and there's a much greater reliance on using our software systems or virtual learning environment to deliver teaching. We are lecturing online, so those lectures tend to be streamed live, but we record them, and so students can access those at any time, but the tutorials we have tend to be face-to-face. That's actually, students have enjoyed that. In terms of our national student survey in the UK, the changes we brought in, we jumped from about 32nd, and this is for the university, but 32nd in the UK to 4th in the UK. And so we think, well, okay, everyone was just looking into an abyss, not knowing how to do it. The approach that we've taken seems to have worked, and the students have enjoyed that combination, and the live videos and and having the tutorials. So I know that we've got a wee bit more than elsewhere. For next semester, we were preparing to make things a bit easier, but with the Omicron variant, and it's probably likely to be the same approach going forward until we understand what the implications are of the Omicron variant. So online lectures, face-to-face tutorials, using virtual learning environment as much as we can, and drawing in internet resources wherever possible.
Great, thank you. Anne-Marie?
Well, we actually have a different situation in Northern Ireland, where when you get into a university setting, we don't have to have social distancing in classrooms. So our university made the decision, at the outset, at the start of this term, after a year of lockdown, to come back to face-to-face teaching, full face-to-face teaching. Now, the university has always taken a heuristic approach to its teaching, and the response that it took was predominantly after discussions with students. Like, there was a survey with students, and a lot of the course directors and tutors talked with students about their experience. And while last year, a lot of them at the start were really grateful for online and they really liked it, by the end of the year, there was an awful lot of fatigue. We were noticing, motivation issues with students, mental health issues with students became a big, massive topic. So we made the decision to go back fully face-to-face, where possible, with absolutely everything. Now, the university, and our response last year, as David says, we performed exceptionally well in the quality rankings and so on. The student satisfaction was 89% at the end of last year, which was brilliant given what we had been experiencing. And in accounting in particular, we did really well, and we jumped up the league tables all around the place because of that. But But part of that was because we continually communicate with the students and almost co-create the type of approach that we take to their learning. And the feedback from the students was they felt they'd missed out the year university and they wanted to get back to it. So we made that decision. Now the university's taken in steps. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but there's some cleaning technology, some spray stuff they put in the room, which keeps the rooms safe for up to 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And things like that. Everybody has to wear a face mask in class, and the lecturers have to wear a face mask when presenting, or a face shield. And that in itself can cause challenges with, voice projection and so on. And I suppose when you're wearing a mask, it does hinder communication a wee bit, because our faces do tell a million stories, if you want to say it like that. But no, we went back to face, and students are beside each other wearing masks within the classroom. But students take it very seriously now, and so does the university. A lecturer can ask a student to leave the room if they're not wearing a face mask, and students want that. And students, although it's been very rare, students have complained when the lecturer has not worn their face mask. So we have that sort of situation going on. But that has been the approach taken by our university.
That's great, thank you. So you're obviously approaching things in different ways. So how do you promote student engagement? Having to teach in different formats and styles, what kind of approaches have you or the university taken for that? Anne-Marie, do you want to keep talking?
Yeah, okay. So I suppose student engagement as with a face-to-face has been similar to it was beforehand. Obviously, we are very lucky in that what we have had last year has meant that we have a whole wealth of material online there that has been pre-prepared, to a high standard, because most of us, you didn't know how long this was going to last. So, when you were preparing recordings, you were going back over them and reviewing them and editing them and making them up, future-proof, if you want to call it that. But we would use that mostly as support now. And though in some instances we do use some flipped classroom, again, just because of student feedback, with some of the theoretical material, you may give it to them in advance of class, and then you would work with more theoretical or practical examples within class because of that. But to promote student engagement, it's the norm. So it is basically talking to the students when you get into class, getting to know the student's name. I would always use the pen picks, so that the pictures and you are able to identify the students and know them by, say, week 3 or 4. Normally what I would do is, if our students are normally in wee rows of 3 in a tutorial group, we would do it more in tutorials, and I would basically ask them, and this row will be answering question 1 or helping with question 1, question 2, and so on. So letting them know in advance that they're going to be asked a question rather than asking them on the spot makes it much easier and happier for them to engage. Also, if you put them into little groups of 3 or that, they can nominate a speaker. I would also encourage, although it's difficult in COVID and restricted in COVID, but walking around the classroom, again, it's more restricted now, but that is from face-to-face teaching, that is a good way to promote engagement. Also, when asking questions, make sure that they can answer the questions. So, something like, if it's a question you've gone over, then, and they're doing another question that is similar to that question, then you can gauge that they're likely to be able to answer that. But I wouldn't really advise asking anything new, because they're very likely to get the question wrong unless it's a very smart student. And when somebody gets a question wrong, I would advise that you respond to them in a positive way, because when a student answers you, even if their solution is incorrect, there's normally quite a bit of understanding underpinning that solution. So it's to identify where they went right and to go, yeah, you're right there, I get where you came from, that's a valid point, and to take the positives out of it and things like that. In a lecture theory, to get them, a lecture setting to get them engaged, I would promote use of, for example, multiple choice at the end of a wee subtopic. And when we were online, we could use the polls, and things like that. Also, to encourage them to engage outside of class, Now, during online, I did use, collaborate and setting up groups, but I actually found that students preferred to use social media. They weren't using the facilities that we set up. They were using their own wee groups. So again, I encourage that, although we can't monitor it. That's the only problem, which is an issue. So I think I could probably talk a lot. I could probably talk on forever, but we should probably let David come in here.
No, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, no, David, do share.
Yeah, so what Anne-Marie was saying is we, in terms of when we do the face-to-face, it's the same type of thing. I suppose adding to that, because we have a much greater online equivalent, we use data cases. So we use spreadsheet exercises for the students to go through. For us, our biggest concern is how students can apply the theory that we've got. So very much a strength, and kind of what we're doing is we really get them to work on spreadsheet work, on cases, looking at cases. Another thing that I do is it's similar to what Anne-Marie just mentioned there, is the multiple choice questions, the quizzes that you get on Connect, that are really, really useful, just to make sure that they're understanding what they're doing, and also the ability that they can redo the quizzes all the time, until they get there, has been really, really helpful to me. And I think the key theme going through that is that the students have got used to this combination of online and face-to-face, and they struggle, I think, to listen for 3 hours to a lecture. So we've been breaking up a lot of our lectures with, so a wee bit of a lecture, maybe 8 to 15 minutes can be, followed by some type of spreadsheet or a quiz or some type of reading activity, and just going through that route. Also, I suppose, just in terms of when we do have the lectures on campus, then we need to finish a wee bit earlier and start a wee bit later to ensure that people are coming in and out and there's social distancing. But I think overall, it's using the other tools that are at our disposal, particularly, and I have to say, so as an example, we're doing a graduate apprenticeship, which is similar to the degree apprenticeships, which is like work-based learning, which is a different style that comes from the apprenticeship levy. Some of you may be teaching on that. And it's a combination of videos, quizzes, spreadsheets, all these things that just allow the students to keep on trying, and that keeps them engaged. Just having that combination and diversity of activities for better learning.
And you've had good feedback on that, and like mixing up how you engage during lectures rather than just them being talked at. So
there are different learning objectives when you've got, so the spreadsheets are when, if we're doing any valuation work or capital budgeting lectures or anything where that they will be applying that in practice. Remember, I've got MBAs, predominantly MBAs, so they're looking for, right, okay, well, you're teaching me this, but where's my toolkit? What is it that I can actually use and apply directly? So the spreadsheets are for those. But because we have a real range of people coming from lots of different backgrounds onto our programs, the quizzes are really important to make sure that they're up to date, and they know, before going on to the next lecture or whatever, that they understand the main concepts. The cases that we use are really important, just to give a bit of flesh onto the lecture material, because you have to, as there's just lots of different ways in which they learn, and I tend to cover areas that are particularly interesting to them, and at the moment sustainability is a massive area, particularly because in Glasgow in COP26 it's like here it's all we talk about, but it's sustainability and just the whole breakdown of the supply chain, the impact of internationalization, how that's changed because of COVID and Brexit, etc. So bringing those cases means that the students can see what we're doing in the lecture be able to apply it in a spreadsheet so they can work on it, but then seeing how they can actually, in a sense, apply it in real life or apply it to real events that have been happening. So that's essentially, by doing all those, I find that I get the best feedback, but it's for different things that we do it. So it's not, it depends on what the needs of the class and what the class are doing in terms of what combination of work that I use.
Definitely. So you'd say bringing in those kind of real world examples and, evolving topics is quite a key driver for ensuring students stay engaged throughout. Like, they like to be able to relate maybe the theory and practice. Yeah,
look, every single company now is looking at how they can change their operations around climate change, become net zero. So the students that we deal with know that they're going to be asked about that in interviews. So, and giving these additional things, these additional cases is quite important to them, because they're ultimately, they want to be more employable. They want to be promoted through their own company or elsewhere, or run their own business. But net zero is absolutely the way to go. Having the big data and understanding that is another thing that I like to bring in. But ultimately, it's drawing on what's happening just now. And what's happening just now is, apart from sustainability, it's how do we come out of COVID? So it's then looking at how your methods that you're using are affected by COVID, such as, uncertainty in the future means that your whole valuation models are different. So how do you incorporate that? How your investment appraisal methods incorporate the uncertainty. So all that stuff is what I think they get the most value from. And a lot of resources that I've seen on, that you provide, Rosie, that I use in what I'm teaching.
That's great. And I know you've incorporated a lot of that in your new editions as well. Yeah. So yeah, that's all there ready. That's great. And Anne-Marie, would you say that's similar in terms of key drivers?
Yeah, definitely. When you're engaging with students, you are part of the motivation for you to engage with or to stimulate their engagement is you're thinking about their employability. And their ability to communicate orally and written communication is all hugely important. And keeping up to date is really, really important. And it is, and using the, real world examples to engage them, and even in the financial accounting side, I suppose I'll touch on, is very important. I mean, at the minute, it would be remiss not to get them to engage with all the issues that are impacting on with COVID, and things like furlough and the accounting behind furlough and things like that, and the digitization of accounting and cloud-based accounting, and how that's changing big data analytics. And as David said, case studies and real world examples are the way to do that. You've got to weave that in places, or even you can even give them wee research tasks to go out and to learn about particular things, and then to come back and report the next day in groups. There's always a wealth of accounting scandals and data security issues that can be delved into in accounting class, and also even the way accounting is changing majorly over time because of spade technologies and things like that, where we are becoming it's becoming more and more process based. So accounting is more about communicating that, and that means the written the ability to write about accounting is actually becoming more important than the nuts and bolts of doing it, because it's becoming so automated, and that's something that we have to build into it. But again, you can work that in through lectures, you can work it in through assignments, you can work it in through tutorial work, and you can enable them to engage with that. In teams is a good way to go about that. One of the things that I would use a lot is the Financial Times, although I believe it's got exceptionally expensive, and I'm not sure if we'll be able to get it every morning now. But you getting them to actually go and find out, about something that's topical in the Financial Times, and to come in, write 100 words on it, and to be able to chat about it. And there you have them, they have researched and resourced in groups of 3 a real world topical issue and are able to talk about it. And as David mentioned, that is really important for interviews. And in fact, I have had students in the past where, I would give them an assignment, and the assignment might be, I suppose you'd call it authentic learning, where they have to analyze, the behavior of a company over time in respect of, something, whatever it be, governance or dividend policy or something. And they have been able to go in and actually talk about that in interviews. And they've mentioned how useful that is. So definitely student engagement helps to build employability skills. To be honest, even asking a student a question in class is preparing them for interviews where they will be asked questions. So they have to be able to answer. And when they're on, and they can practice in class, even if they don't know the answer, the best thing that they can do is to say, I'm not sure, perhaps it is, rather than to come out and make stuff up, which would not go down well in an interview. So yeah, there are a lot of drivers. I think too, student engagement motivates students. If you can keep them engaged, you will keep them learning. If you lose them, if you're just going to be a talking shop, it's not going to work. And everything that David said there is correct. When you're in a lecture, you've got to break it up, keep it small, keep it simple, and keep changing what you're doing, even in a lecture.
That's great. And in light of that, do you think that student characteristics or expectations have changed over the last few years, as well, into what they expect to receive when they're on their course or at university?
Yeah, I definitely think they have changed, and it's not because of COVID. This is going back to probably when fee paying came in. I think there definitely was a push by students to get their money's worth from the university. And it has led to some very, very good changes. I mean, some of us might complain about, a lot more admin, but the point is you walk into any course now and you've got a brilliant module outline that's detailing exactly what is going to be taught, when, where, how. You have a list of resources, you have a list of link to back up resources, and that has helped. And I would say what's happened is COVID has actually helped to strengthen the support that we give, because it made everybody, I mean, I know I was certainly engaging with online before, because the way my module was, some of my module worked where I was scheduled on a Monday, and I know it's the same in England, but on a Monday we would have a bank holiday, and then you'd have St. Patrick's Day, and then you might have a conference. So in any 12-week period, you might have 2 classes disrupted. And you could reschedule those classes, but most students now are working or they have other lives. And so before this, I had been taught, I had been tinkering in online, but now I have definitely strengthened that. And whenever I have, over the past year, I have learned a lot from colleagues. Indeed, the university has set up, we've got these rapid action experts in our department who basically are brilliant at online and looking at technologies and finding out. And you learn an awful lot from them and from other people on what works for them. And also talking to the students and getting feedback from the students. So I would say that student expectations have changed, and COVID has helped us to actually meet those expectations. But the expectations on staff have increased also in terms of the teaching because of that. But I think all in all, they are getting an improved service, from everybody. But what I would say is that we do have to put in sort of steps to protect ourselves, because staff also have to research and have other tasks, and students can demand 24/7, particularly in the run up to the exam. And again, the way I work that is I set up, forums, discussion forums, and ask them to put the questions on the forum, so that you're not getting 20 questions separately at an email and having to respond to it separately. So online has been really useful in those respects. Also, we've all banks of material now that we can put on for support online to help them. And we have the facilities like Connect that we can direct them to for additional support.
That's great. Yeah, sounds like they're getting a good amount of support and resources. And yeah, David, do you have anything to add to that? I'm aware of the time, and I know you've got other commitments, but yeah, anything else you wanted to add?
No, Anne-Marie captured all of it. Just, I suppose the one thing that comes out is for in terms of when I'm teaching people is they want to know how they can actually use it. They're very driven about the applicability, and so we've changed the approach. We've had to change the approach. You can't just explore things for the sake of exploring things. Now the students are saying, well, okay, what implications does this have for me? How can I use this? They're already thinking of the next step, particularly MBA students. I also think that we've had to change the teaching a little bit, as I said earlier. We need to break up the lectures much more, and just look at doing different things just to keep them engaged. I think it's just the way people have changed over time. But everything Anne-Marie said, I completely concur with. It's the exact same.
No, that's great, thank you. Which brings us on nicely to talk about Connect, which is McGraw Hill's online learning and homework platform. And so, yes, thank you, Anne-Marie and David, for your time. Please do be putting any questions in the chat and we'll try and get to them at the end. But yeah, Lindsay is our academic consultant and is going to show us some of the resources in our Connect platform now. Thanks.
Thank you, Rosie. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, can you see that okay? Yeah, perfect. Hi, good morning, everybody. Yes, my name is Lindsay Butterworth and I'm one of the academic consultants here at McGraw Hill. So yeah, I'm just going to spend some time just going through a couple of our key areas in Connect, and particularly beneficial around this subject area that we're talking this morning. So we've got the smart book reading assignments. So when it comes to reading, what we do here is that students are not always reading, and the smart book is one of our most powerful tools which can be incentivized. So again, what we would recommend is that you assign maybe 30 to 45 minute weekly assignment each week. You can just see on this screen here, you can select the chapter. So maybe a particular topic area that you're going to be covering before your next lecture, or the topic area you're studying at the time. And you can also see that you can go really granular here as well. So you can really tailor and direct those students to read around whatever it is you're going to be discussing and covering. And it's taken the guesswork out for students as well. So you can assign the chapter here, and it's very quick to deploy. Like I say, you can go very granular and choose your topics. So from the student's point of view, they will then begin with the readings, as you can see here. So they'll start with the readings and they will begin to work their way through the concept. So they will begin to answer questions on what they've read and prove to the system that they've understood the material. So they're underpinning their knowledge on what they've read. They will have to answer 2 learning concepts on each concept area, and the student will then know that they have understood that concept and will then move them on. So really designed to be a real baseline of student knowledge. So again, and I think Anne-Marie touched on this as well, you know, if they can do this reading before the lecture, they kind of got that foundation theory, which allows the instructor maybe to be more interactive during the course of the lecture with more practical elements of the course as well. Going on to our question banks, and I know David's talked about these a lot. I particularly wanted to focus on the algorithmic questions here, again, because of the subject we're talking about this morning. So you can see here that you can create multiple choice questions, and again, I think they've been discussed. So we can choose to create a pool of questions, which you can see here, of algorithmic questions. It just means with the algorithmic questions, if you are going to set this for practice for your students, every time they go into that question, they will see a different set of figures. So they can go into here and they can keep practicing and knowing that they will get different questions each time they do go in and they reattempt that question. It also means that if you were going to use this for your online assessment, then you could, you're safe in the knowledge that all of your students again are going to get different set of figures. So if you were going to use this for your online assessment, you have got, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that they would all share any information, but so you can rest in the knowledge that they will all see different figures. I've also just left, just down the left there, you can see if you were giving this to your students for practice, you can leave certain resources switched on for them. So give them hints, they can reference back, they've got access to the ebook. So if you want as an instructor, if this was for practice, then you can leave all of that available to them. Obviously, if we were using this for a secure online assessment, we would want to switch all of those resources off. So that's looking at the algorithmic questions. So it may be that, like I say, you want to set them a reading, maybe for them to do before the lecture. And again, the instructor will have insight into students that are engaging with that reading. And then we've got the algorithmic questions we can then set for them for practice or assessment. We also have our integrated Excel problems. So you can see these are also embedded in each of the chapters with this particular title we're looking at here at the moment. So again, depending on what subject area you are covering, you can allocate a relevant Excel problem for them. There's no need for you to upload or download any additional files. You can choose auto-graded questions as well. So these are auto-graded. So no need for the instructor to hopefully buy them back some time there. And they've also got the option for either grading for formula accuracy or the fact that they've able to show the solution. So just looking quickly here, you can see this is looking at it from the student view. So once they've gone into the question, they will just click on the Open Excel in New tab and it seamlessly opens within Excel. So they don't have to come out of Connect to then go and open an Excel, and it all happens from within the platform. So they will click on here and again, they can be taken straight into Excel and begin to attempt the question. They're able to check their answers, check their work. So again, if this was for practice, really good resource to leave available to them. And they can begin to work their way through the question and the graded cells. There's also what we've called a scratch pad area at the bottom. So again, the student can do all of their working out in here. It is a non-graded workspace, but then you as an instructor are able to see their thought process and how they've worked their way through that question. The integrated Excel simulations, like I say, are embedded within each of the chapters, so you can choose a relevant question or problem for them to complete, depending on what you are covering in your lecture. But there are also additional simulations as well within some of our titles also. And these are available within our corporate finance, our MBA corporate finance, and our investment titles as well. So yeah, that's a quick look at our reading. So incentivized readings, again, creating the foundation so that when students turn up to the lectures, they've got that baseline knowledge, allowing students and instructors to have more time to be interactive, which I know both David and Anne-Marie have touched on, keeping it current and keeping it relevant and motivated. And then we've got the algorithmic questions, which we can assign for practice or assessment, and also the integrated Excel, which allows them to stay within the platform, but still build up that Excel knowledge.
Thanks so much, Lindsay. That's great. Moving on from that, we've Anne-Marie and David touched on employability and integrating real world examples and things into their courses. And our content developer, Maggie, is now going to show our application-based activities, which are simulations that McGraw Hill provides through Connect. So over to you, Maggie. Thanks again, Lindsay.
No problem.
Lindsay, I think you should just stop sharing your screen so I can share mine.
Please feel free to put any other questions in the chat and we will get to them at the end as well.
Let me just share the correct screen. Sorry, emails, just want to get my notes up. There we go. So today I'm going to talk to you about the application-based activities. These can be found on our Connect platform and form part of many of our titles. Application-based activities allow students to practice multiple course concepts in a single scenario. These can be used as in-class activities. They can also be used as post-lecture assessment or as practice opportunities. These activities are automatically graded, and instructors can allow students to have multiple attempts. And I think doing these activities gives students confidence in applying concepts that they have learned. So I'm quickly going to show you, so this is our Connect platform, and I'm going to show you the ABA activity from the student view. Just wait for, okay, so this is the student view. Once activity is assigned, the student will go in and start the activity, and they will see the screen. Let's see. Sometimes it takes a while to load. Okay, so once the student signs in to the activity, they'll see the screen, which will give them an overview of the activity. And it will also describe the learning objectives that will be covered and explain the evaluation and scoring. So the background on this activity is it's a hardware store, and it's who has not planned out investments and cash flow in the past, but would now like to reevaluate their growth strategy. The student is hired to prepare a financial plan to help the owners grow their business. So once the student clicks on begin, the activity will start. So on the left-hand side, you can see a chat screen. This is where they'll meet the business owners, Corey and Paul, and they'll explain their dilemma to the student. The student will then click through, and as they click through on the right-hand side, they will be met with data. So throughout the activity, the student will need to analyze the data to answer questions that will pop up. And I will show you what that looks like. So as they click on continue, they'll get more data to analyze, and then the student needs to go and start analyzing. So here is the first question. It says, what is next day's retention ratio? And it says round to 3 decimals, and then the student needs to enter a response in this box. So obviously the student needs to go away and do their calculations. I am going to put in the incorrect answer because I want to show you that this gives a hint. So if the student gets the question incorrect, they'll get a little hint to help them in the right direction. They then get a second chance to answer the question. I'm going to put in the incorrect answer again. And again, they will get another hint. And then after the third try, they will, the system will give them the correct answer, but then also give them a worked example so that they're not just given the answer and they don't know where the answer has come from. So then that's basically the activity. Then the next question, I'll just show you if they have a correct answer. So this is asking them the sustainable internal growth rate. Sorry, I just need to get my answers correct. So I hope I have it correct here. Okay, so no, I haven't noted down the correct answer, but so this is only one type of question, but there's also multiple choice questions throughout the activity, and the data changes. They are met with more data after a while that they need to analyze, and at the end of they get immediate feedback on each question and immediate scoring on each question, and at the end of the activity they have a total score, and they know immediately what they have scored, and this is where instructors can allow a second attempt or use it as a assessment activity, and that's ABAs.
Thanks so much, Maggie. If anyone would like to know more information about the ABAs or anything within Connect, we can get in touch with you at the end of the webinar. But we've had some questions come through. So I think, Anne-Marie, unfortunately David's had to go to another meeting, but so the question is, how do you deal with unmotivated students, students who demonstrate the wrong body language, or secretly looking at their mobile phones, not taking notes? How do you combat that?
Okay, well, we all have had experience of that, I would say, and I suppose it depends upon the lecturer, their personality, and the student and their personality. The way I have dealt with that in the past is, first of all, over the years, I've learned that the people who are going to show disinterest will probably be sitting at the back of the class. So from very early on, I make it my point to get to know them. And basically, so, I would definitely wander around and ask them how they're getting on and sort of try and gauge that. But even with that, you can still get people who turn on mobile phones and look at them. And what I have done in the past is done maybe at the start of the class, make it sort of like start a routine thing to say, can everybody please turn off their phones and put them away? And that might get rid of the problem. But even then, if they're still not taking notes in that, it may actually signal that you've been, that you haven't changed, what you're doing, it's gone on too long. So if you might need to break up a topic and put something in between. Or sometimes that I've noticed in the past when I notice people starting to talk, to me that signals they're getting a wee bit bored, and I would actually just kind of stop what I'm doing and change what I'm doing to give them something to do, and that might help it. If you know the student and they're kind of, you get a laddie type person, you could maybe even make a joke out of it, during class, but you need to be really careful with that, I've noticed. And what I would do also is I would kind of look at them so that they know that I know what they're doing, and sometimes that can stop it. And if that doesn't stop it, then I would make a point of making sure that I get to chat to that student on their own. So I would never single them out in class and say to them, that's really rude or whatever, because that can cause real issues for you, is that they'll likely complain. But what I would do is, I'd maybe ask them, can I have a wee word with you afterwards, so that the rest of the class can't see it, and ask them, like, do you have a problem with the class or the topic, or is there something that you don't understand, you're falling behind, so I would put it across in a supportive sort of way type thing, because you do have to be really careful. I remember at one time I had a student was answering exceptionally aggressively. And again, I just waited then in the class and brought the student aside and asked if they had a problem with me, and they hadn't. I worked out afterwards they had Asperger's, and they weren't even aware that they were being aggressive in their response. It was just the way they communicated. So it is difficult. And each situation, you have to read the situation. But you definitely need to do something. You can't let it continue.
Thank you, that's great. And Lindsay, this might be a question for you. How do you make the weighted marks for each question in the MCQs visible to students as they access the questions?
So when they are in Connect and they are going into their practice quiz, they will see the number of questions and they will see how many points are available. So they will see that information on the front screen before they begin the quiz. So that is already there visible to them. And the same with the readings as well, that can also be incentivized. So again,
That's great, thank you. Right, Bryony, I will pass back to you unless anyone has any further questions.
Yeah, we just have a couple of minutes left in the webinar if anyone did have anything else they would like to ask Anne-Marie, or if there's anything you'd like to know about our products. But if you don't feel comfortable asking now, that's absolutely fine. I know that Lindsay and all our other academic consultants would be very happy to have a one-to-one conversation with anyone if they would like to know a bit more detail about Connect or any of our other tools that you've seen today. Certainly sometimes it's easier just to take things at your own pace and have that opportunity to ask questions one-to-one. So do feel free to get in touch with me or with anybody else in our team if you would like to know more or you have questions following the event today. So we have been recording the session. You will be receiving an email in the next couple of days with the link to the recording. Please do feel free to share that with your colleagues if they weren't able to attend today, or anybody else you know at another institution who might want to know more about this topic. I know we're a few minutes early, but I'm sure everybody is extremely busy, so they'll probably welcome having 5 minutes back. So last call for any questions. Otherwise, I will close the meeting today. Okay.
Can I just say, sorry.
Of course.
Again,
yes.
in response to, again, I'm thinking away about Joan's question. Also, what I would say is, don't assume also by someone's face or not note-taking that they're not listening and interested. Because I have approached somebody in the past who doesn't take notes, or who hadn't been taking notes, but he'd been recording and he just wanted to listen, and he did see, when I spoke to him afterwards, he did seem, and he always attended, but he always sat there with this sour pus on his face, but he was interested.
And is that something you allow students to do, to record the lecture themselves if they wish to?
Yeah, they normally ask in advance. I don't see it as a problem.
Interesting. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that comment. Grand. Okay, I would love to thank Anne-Marie and obviously David in his absence for being our panelists today, for your considered thoughts and the information you shared about your own teaching. I think people will have found that very helpful. And thank you once again to Lindsay and Maggie for taking time to demo some of our products. And thank you to Rosie for chairing our discussion. We will be in touch. Thank you to everyone who's taken time to attend today, and hopefully see you again soon at one of our other webinars. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.